Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at Charles Darwin University. Welcome to Outrider 17, How to Make the Corrections Examiners Require of You. I may write more important outriders, but I may not. And the trigger of this particular outrider has been a couple of students that have written to me in a pretty difficult situation. The first student had received corrections from their examiners and they've sort of made them, but they've continued to bounce between making those corrections and their supervisor and the faculty reviewers. And this has gone on like ping pong 3, 4, 5 times. So they're trying to make the corrections, but they're not making sufficient corrections. And the second case perhaps is even sadder, of a gentleman who has received his examiner's reports, read them and decided simply not to progress with the thesis. So received the examiner's reports and walked away rather than make the corrections. What an absolute tragedy. But I remain really concerned about what's happening in the space between a student submitting a thesis, the thesis being examined, and the corrections being made after the examiner reports are released. That's become an increasingly messy space. And there are many reasons why there are problems in that space now. I think a key problem is a confusion between peer-reviewed research and examination. So a confusion in process, that somehow there's an equivalence between peer reviewing and the examination. Actually, they are completely different processes. Examination is not peer review. It's not peer review. It is a moment of quality assurance in your doctoral degree. Now, you can't disagree with examiners. Let me state that again. You can't disagree with examiners. Every single comment that an examiner makes, you have to address. Doesn't mean you agree with it, but you must address it. So in the Outrider today, I'm going to talk about how to make those corrections, how to do this to create peace for yourself, but also quality assurance in international higher education. That's how important examination is. Now, I need to start sadly, welcome to our times, I need to start sadly by reminding you to respect your examiners. These people are international leaders in the field. They have moved through multiple checks from your supervisor, from a higher degree coordinator in many systems, and from people like me. So multiple checks have been enacted to ensure they are of quality and that they have the expertise to assess your thesis. Now, examiners are senior to you. They know more than you do. I know that's a quite brutal series of comments, but I have to say this to you. I've seen students sort of dismiss examination, dismiss examiners, and these examiners have a career of excellence. They have a career of integrity. And a student simply wipes away that integrity and that expertise and starts name calling. So, for example, I can't tell you how many times a PhD student has described their examiners as Nazis. Now, I've studied the final solution, and trust me, PhD examiners are not Nazis. These examination results from a research master's degree or a PhD, it has nothing to do with the assessment at an undergraduate level. And that's really important, I think. So it's not like, oh, right, well, you're assessed in an undergraduate degree or in a coursework master's, and then the PhD continues that. No, the PhD is a completely different mode of assessment. And what examiners are doing is assessing if you reach the benchmark of international higher degrees. It's a benchmark-driven process. Now, therefore, in this benchmark-driven process, you're not offering a comment about your examiners like you're on Instagram. This is an examination process. It's rigorous, it's transparent, and it's a highly professional process. It requires accountability, and yes, it requires clarity. Almost all of the students out there watching the Outrider this week, you will have to use this session at some point. It will help you, it'll speed up the way in which you make your corrections. And look, don't panic about it. When you get corrections, the overwhelming majority of PhD students and research master's students get corrections on their theses. The AA or the 1-1 result happens in about 8 to 10% of examination cases, obviously depending on your national system. Where there is an oral examination, there tends to be a slightly higher AA 1-1 result. So just about everybody is going to have to read their examination reports and make corrections. Now, what I think is going wrong is when you're reading those examiner reports, it may seem similar to reading referee reports or reading a review of a book chapter or indeed a book. And then, okay, so you've done peer review and then you make the corrections. But actually this is an incredibly different process. And let me just, at its most basic, explain to you why engaging with readers' reports on an article and engaging with examiner reports are completely different. If you put an article out into a journal and peer reviews come back and reader 2 really doesn't like it, and as we all know, reader 2 often really doesn't like it, you have an option to remove that article from that journal and go to another journal that you think is more suitable. But if you receive examiner reports, you have just received your examination reports. You will not move through the process of fulfilling the requirements of your thesis unless you make those corrections. You can't take it away and send it somewhere else. These are your examiner reports. Now, you may hate them. You may swear. You may want your examiners to die in a strange boating accident, but they are your examiners. You can't ignore them. You can't ignore them. You can't call them stupid, moron, Nazi, and move on with your life. You have to take this commentary seriously, and you will not receive your degree unless you take this commentary seriously. And I've certainly seen some pretty weird stuff from supervisors and students in the last 25 or so years that I've been dealing with higher degrees. I've seen some weird stuff from students and supervisors in response to examiners' reports. And remember, the irony of this situation is that your supervisors have selected your examiners, right? So the idea that supervisors are then complaining about examiners' reports when they selected the examiners is really weird. So I've had students endlessly describe examiners as Nazis. Oh, so classy. And then I've had and this is a true case, I've had a supervisor state that reading an examiner's report resulted in a mental health issue for him, and he has to step away from those reports and not read them again for his well-being. So therefore, how about we cut away these operatic excesses? This is a PhD examination. This is serious. You are being assessed whether or not you should actually get this degree. Have you reached the international standards, not your institutional standards, the international standards required to award you this degree? You don't have control over what examiners say about you, but you do have control over how you manage those corrections. So let's do this. So my job in this Outrider this week is to prepare you intellectually and show you how to make those corrections, but to also prepare you emotionally so you can move through the emotional narrative and get on with the work so you can get your degree. And look, you can grumble bum as much as you like, but this is an examination and quality assurance is required. Full stop. And we reach quality assurance by you respecting your examiners and you making those corrections. And then, of course, you making those corrections, it's not about if you made the corrections, you get the degree. You make the corrections, it's then assessed by your supervisor, whether you made them of quality. It then goes up to a high degree coordinator or an associate dean research, and it finishes with somebody like me. So think about it. I'm signing off your corrections. Finishes with somebody like me, where I assess line by line if you have taken the examiner's report seriously, and I don't sign off that degree until you have. Okay? So let me now give you the 10 quick tips, and this is quick, 10 quick tips to help you, prepare you intellectually and emotionally to do this at speed, but also with rigour and clarity. Let's do this. 1, take the emotion out of the process. There's a Propian folktale sort of quality to the narrative that happens after a student gets their examination report. So what happens is they get their report, and this is, can I say, even in response to really, really great reports. So a student gets 5 pages of absolute glowing commentary from an examiner. Wow, fantastic work. And 1 paragraph of going, now these areas need to be addressed. And the student just fixates on the 1 paragraph and ignores the 5 pages. So the emotional narrative that students pass through when they get their examiner's reports, they start with shock, and they very quickly move to horror, and then move to embarrassment and shame. And they stay there for a while, but then very quickly, in most cases, they move to blame. And they blame their supervisors for not being good supervisors. They blame their supervisors for picking bad examiners. And then, of course, they move straight to the examiners and blame the examiners for everything. Particularly, they blame examiners for examining. No, how dare they critique me? Who do they think they are? And obviously, who they think they are is examiners, so they're doing their job. Now, examiners are there to examine you. You pass through, if you can, this emotional narrative as quickly as possible, because blame and self-loathing and embarrassment won't get your corrections made. So you need to get through this Propian emotional narrative as quickly as possible. So park your emotions and put your energy into assembling that table of corrections. Switch the tracked changes on for me on your Word document and handle each line of the examiner's report. No emotion, just 1 correction after another, and give yourself that momentum. Now, I know that it feels like you've got no control over this process, and that's why the fear and the blame and the shame happens. But actually, you've got a lot of control. You've got control over how you handle those amendments. 2, here we go. Respect your examiner even if you disagree with them. The examiner is not wrong. Let me state that again. The examiner is not wrong. They are raising comments for a reason. And you need to understand those reasons and manage them. The abuse I hear from students about senior academics is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Come to the process with respect. Respect for other academics and the integrity of other academics. Remember, those examiners have taken 3 days, a week out of their life, to care for you and go through and assess your thesis. That's what they've done. And they've done it for very, very little money. So we all need to thank them for their commentary because they are improving your work. So 3, don't react to the comments, respond to the comments. If you get nothing else out of today, do this one for me. Don't react, respond. As I said, I've had unbelievable students sit in my desk, whether I've been a head of school, head of department, the multiple dean roles I've had, and they're sitting across from my desk, they're reading the reports, and this has happened on multiple occasions, can I say. The students throw the reports at me. So disgusted and angry, they throw the reports at a dean or a head of school. Unbelievable. Now, the tragedy is when I've then read those reports that have been thrown at me, they actually seem pretty good. They're actually pretty benign reports. So stop yourself reacting and start to respond to the comments. The examiner is offering you this commentary for a reason, and you have to work out that reason. You need to ask why. And you also need to take it on the chin and say, okay, I was not clear in conveying my meaning. If the examiner has missed it, if you've said something and they've missed it, go, I did do that. Oh, no. If they've missed it, that means you didn't present the point strongly enough, you didn't emphasise it enough, you didn't show enough clarity. Now, I'll use the wonderful Sue Charlton, great mate of mine. I took over as her rescue supervisor. I've written with her. Sue is just a legendary human being, and Sue has given me the permission to tell this story. So Sue wrote a brilliant thesis, highly innovative, and she had to do something remarkable because her control group failed. So the empirical, she thought she was doing an empirical thesis, the control group failed, and the empirical study sort of went away, and the examiners went, well, we're out, there's nothing here, and they left. And then Sue and I met, got on incredibly well, and we decided to use the failure of the empirical study to pivot and show a theoretical gain from that empirical study for regional health. And in an entire chapter, chapter 4, she explained the rationale for this movement from the empirical to the theoretical and how it contributed to an original contribution to knowledge. Fantastic thesis. Now, one of her examiners stated that she did not present the rationale for the movement from the empirical to the theoretical with sufficient detail. Now, Sue and I could have pointed at the entirety of chapter 4. We could have reacted and gone, the whole of chapter 4 did that, dude. Sort yourself out. We didn't do that. We didn't react, we responded. So in the introduction, we foreshadowed chapter 4 and the rationale for the change. And at the end of chapters 1, 2 and 3, we foreshadowed the failures of the empirical and what's coming to the theoretical. So actually the whole thesis started to focus on the rationale of the movement from empirical to theoretical, and the SOC emerged actually in that 4th chapter. So we could have reacted and pointed to chapter 4 and go, look, we've done that, dude, sort yourself out. Or we could recognise that the examiner believed that the change was not justified in sufficient detail. So we took that on board. So originally Sue got a 2, so minor corrections, and a 4, revise and resubmit. The next 2 examiners gave it a 1 and a 2 because we responded and not reacted, and she got fantastic publications from that remarkable thesis. Brilliant. Because the examiners helped her. And so chapter 4 became an absolute remarkable refereed article. Thanks for playing. 4, address the corrections. You don't have to agree with them. This is the big one. The greatest error I think students make when they're starting to enact the corrections in their PhD is they start to treat corrections like Vegemite. I like it. I don't like it. I like that correction. I don't like that correction, right? Now, actually, no one is asking you to like your corrections. No one's asking you to feel good about making those corrections. This is a quality assurance process. So if you think the examiner is a moron, a Nazi, or has got it completely wrong, take a breath. And you recognise that they have missed your argument. So address the issue by specifying in much greater clarity what went wrong and how to improve it. So increase the visibility of the point that you think you've already made. Address the issue raised by examiners, don't dismiss them. Address, don't dismiss. And explain with succinctness how you are addressing their concerns. If they missed your point, make the point more visible. 5, important one, please don't be overwhelmed. Start by making the simplest text-based corrections. This will help you. Sometimes you get an examiner, and they're wonderful human beings, and they will list every single typographical and grammar error in the entire thesis. And so your report might go on for 10, 11, 12 pages. And students, when they get that, are embarrassed and overwhelmed. But you know what? Thank the examiner for taking so much time, and then just start to address each stylistic correction one at a time, put it on your amendments table. So get yourself organised making those corrections, make the simple text corrections first, do the easy stuff, And that speed and that momentum will give you courage and will give you confidence to quickly enact those corrections. 6, important one. Consider and understand the perspective of the examiner and contextualise their expertise in relation to that perspective. This is quite a delicate one, but this will help you enormously. Examiners are different people from you. Examiners have had different life experiences than you, different training, different expectations. Okay, so we see this, I'll give you an example, particularly in nanoscale science. So I've chaired so many oral examinations where the student's a chemist or the examiner's a physicist, and the physicist at a certain point will ask the chemist, the student, right, I'm now going to test your fundamental science on physics. And the inversion does always happen too, by the way. So the chemist, as the examiner, asks the physicist student, I'm going to test your fundamental science. Right. So in systems without an oral examination, this basic testing of fundamental science, and in the high humanities, it would be testing of, some high theoretical conceptualization work. That sort of work can't happen because there's no oral exam. So it has to happen in the report. So realise in areas like nanotech, biomed, cultural studies, media studies, just to name a few examples, examiners are offering their commentary from their particular expertise and disciplinary parameter. So respect that standpoint and know that it may be very different from yours, and respect the difference, and in your amendments explain the differences. 7, let's keep going with the disciplinarity. Confirm disciplinary clarity, particularly if your thesis is transdisciplinary, antidisciplinary, or post-disciplinary. Right. These theses are the most difficult to examine, just so you know, and they are increasing in number. So no examiner has the full breadth of expertise to cover all of the content in these types of theses. So we pick examiners, by the way, that overlap about 70%, so the whole thesis is covered. And what you need to do with these sorts of theses is add paragraphs, linking paragraphs that explain clearly what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're moving in between the disciplines. Now, one way to address the deep theoretical, epistemological, or methodological differences is to offer clarity about your positioning, to explain where you came from. So a prologue or some pretty deep theoretical work on positioning will help you enormously. So what you need to do is connect your original contribution to knowledge to your disciplinary perspective, while also acknowledging the other disciplinary variables and solutions that are available. Okay. 8, examiners are providing you with an opportunity. Please take that opportunity. Now, I base all of these outriders. The reason we've come to this series is because I want to affirm the importance of intellectual generosity. The worst of academic life at the moment is brittle, is selfish, is self-absorbed, and generalises very specific case studies into these big picture worldviews, and it's just not accurate. It's just not real. So treat all examinations and all examiners as an opportunity for you to improve. Read the commentary, recognise that the examiners respect you and have respected you through their time and their expertise, and you now have an opportunity to improve on your weaknesses and enhance your work. What a gift that is. And of course that will enable future opportunities and publications. And can I say, why I would always respect your examiners is many of them may end up your referees. So be very careful in how you handle this particular moment of your life, because if you don't handle this well, you could lose a prospective referee for 30 years. Okay. 9, let's get to the difficult stuff, managing the divergent commentaries. Most examinations feature different marks or different gradings from examiners. So that means that, most examiners don't agree completely. So you will always get sort of someone that's a 1 or an A, straight through, someone goes minor corrections, someone goes major corrections, right? So you'll always get different results. It's very, very rare that you get double A, double 2, double 3. Very, very rare. Mostly you get a bit of a mix, right? And sometimes, to add a bit of juice and complexity to this, you get different evaluations from different examiners on the same point. And that's quite common, can I say, in systems without oral examinations. So when you're in a system with an oral examiners, you've got 2 or 3 people in a room, and they tend to self-manage, and they can figure a more consensual response to it, right? But without an oral exam, independent international examiners doing their own interpretation. So it's not surprising they are a bit different, right? So what you need to do, and how do you handle it when 2 examiners offer an alternative view on the same point? Always fun. So what students do is, of course, they invariably throw up their hands and go, right, and they agree with the person who agrees with them, and they dismiss the person that disagrees with them. No, that's not right. Instead, you need to understand deeply how the difference in interpretation has occurred. So the difference may have been caused by a disciplinary issue, a methodological issue, or a political issue. We'll come back to the political issue in a second. But aim for clarity and explain intellectually why this difference has occurred. So if you're doing radical work on the political economy, if you're looking at the blue economy, you're looking at the green economy, you're looking at the carbon economy, these are pretty volatile topics with some pretty disparate literature, right? Some pretty complicated, edgy literature. So it's very difficult to get consensus in some fields in particular. They are volatile, and doesn't mean you don't do them, but we need to respect the volatility and understand the volatility. And finally, 10, I told you we'd go political. Managing the politically volatile examiner. In my sort of field, we have to manage these crew a lot. And I have enormous respect for them, fantastic. But this is where I start to deal with what I call the nasty split, the big split. So it's not like 2-3, 1-3. This is like, okay, someone gives you a 1 and someone gives you a 5, a fail, right? So these are the big splits, the nasty splits. What's going on here? And again, there are reasons for this. They may be methodological, they may be epistemological, but mostly the nasty splits are political. The biggest splits I've seen, and can I say, when I was doing the research for this Outrider this week, I collect the really weird examiners' reports, right? I've got about 25 years of, oh my goodness me, reports, right? And so I went through and read my file of these wow examiner reports, right? And I tried to work out, for the first time really in my life, what's in common with all of these examiners that have done this. And I've worked it out for you. You see, in this case, what happens is the big splits result in your thesis not matching the examiner's expectations. So what they thought the thesis would be, it's nowhere near that. So that's what creates the nasty splits. Now, can I say, in just about every system on planet Earth, when you've got what I call the nasty split, 2, we're like, ooh, wow, what happens is a third examiner comes in. You get a third data point, and then you work out what's going on with the thesis, right? And you make all corrections from all of them, but you've got a third data point to understand a little bit more about what's going on. Okay, so let's talk about those angry reports, the nastiest reports I've read in the last 25 years. And there are a few of them that the title of the thesis that the student selected had nothing to do with the thesis itself. So the examiner had no sort of expectation of what was going on. Here was the title, and the thesis was completely different. So you understand his confusion, right? The student, and this is where the examiners get really agitated, and I understand this. My heart rate increases when I am speaking this to you now. So examiners get very agitated when a huge slice of literature is simply ignored. So the student sort of says, oh, I'm doing a significant original contribution to knowledge. Here's my original contribution to knowledge. And the examiner says, dude, here are 70 studies that you have not engaged with that do exactly what you're saying is your original contribution to knowledge. Okay, so missing a huge chunk of the literature gets an examiner going. But also in clinical and professional fields, right? And museum studies, tourism studies is a very interesting example of this. If the student has disrespected a practitioner or a clinician's expertise, then some volatility emerges. Okay, so a way to handle this mismatch of expectations. So when an examiner goes, what are you doing here? Then great and straightforward ways to do this. Change your title. Check that your abstract is actually doing what your thesis is doing. Make sure the abstract and the thesis are actually right. And look carefully at your introduction and your conclusion and your SOC, your significant original contribution to knowledge. Make sure everything is in alignment. So remember, I've always said to new students, and I don't know if this is useful to you, and hi to Piper, my wonderful Piper started last week, and we spent some quality time, about 45 minutes, thinking about this. But have a section of your introduction, it may be a page, it may be a bit more, where you talk about what you're not addressing. So in your introduction, specify for your examiners, this is what I am doing, and by the way, these are the areas I'm not addressing and why. And that'll calm your examiner down. Now, when students don't do this, examiners get increasingly agitated because they're reading 100,000 words and they're going, where's the argument? What are we doing here? And they're looking for something. And because you've not said, oh, look, I'm not doing that, they're endlessly looking for that. Whereas if you, in the introduction, say, I'm doing this, I'm not doing this, the examiner relaxes. Oh, cool. Okay, so I won't look for that. I know why that decision has been made. I'm cool. So the students, therefore, you guys really need to frame clearly your original contribution to knowledge. You need to frame your disciplinary focus, your methodological focus, and acknowledge overtly, this works really well, by the way, the political volatility of your field. So acknowledge that. Say, this is politically volatile, the debates are pretty vexed, and acknowledge that to the examiner. And they'll, again, calm down and go, yes, they are vexed, well said, and they'll follow you on that journey. That honesty will be appreciated. And also it's a way for you to understand how to handle that pretty messy examiner's report. So when you get a bit of a volatile one, understand why it's happened and then quietly and carefully address the expectations of that examiner. So don't panic. Always receive the examiner's report with gratitude and address those issues with clarity, consideration, and respect. And that is the foundation of scholarship. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.